Sounds good. Hello. So I hope you've enjoyed the team presentations and discussions. Till this point, we've mainly heard the team's experiences with their respective challenges and how everyone felt about the summer as a group. However, we'll now begin with the panel discussion where we'll hear from individual participants about their personal journey this summer and what they made of their bio experience. So today we have Jeremy, Noor, Edie, and Kathryn as our wonderful panelists. I'll begin with a set of questions that I have prepared, but if anyone has their own questions they would like to ask the panel members, please feel free to type it in the chat and I will relay it to them. And like Mads mentioned before, if you do have a direct question for like a participant, please feel to raise your hand and we can help facilitate that discussion as well. So to start, I'll ask Noor, how would you describe your bio experience?
So I describe my experience obviously as a learning experience, which is what it was intended as. I would add though that it might have been a bit more of an unexpected learning experience in my case. Obviously coming into it, I knew there was going to be a bunch of stuff that I didn't know that I was going to learn about. For example, in our case, particularly like stuff that had to do with business and like, all those like small tasks, which I didn't really know about because I'm an engineering and science student. I don't do any of those things. But the reason why I would say unexpected is because at the same time as well, there were a lot of things that I had either just assumed I already kind of mastered or knew how to do that, halfway through the summer, I realized, oh, wait, actually, no, I don't know how to do this. This is completely new and just like completely improved. I guess an example would be, for example, either communication maybe, or even just like technical report writing, which is the first thing you learn as a science or engineering student. And then, as you go, you just keep learning and learning onto it. So for me, it was really like unexpected and new.
I have to say I agree with that so much. It's so relatable and it's almost embarrassing to admit. So like I'm an engineer, right? Like I've done so many classes on project design, but like the minute I'm tested on it, I feel like I just blank. And I really realized that over like both the summers that I've worked on for the BioExperience program. But like, I'm happy to say that right now I really do know a lot about project design and I can kind of list off the top of my head like how to approach a project. And on that note, Jeremy, would you say you agreed with Noor or did you have a different experience?
Yeah, I agree with Nora with like most of her details. It was a enlightening experience. Shout out to the Biotimes workshops for being the highlight of my week for the past how long has it been? 8 weeks, 8, 9 weeks, whatever. They were the highlight of my weeks. They were really good, fun and entertaining, and I learned so much from it. So yeah, we learned we learned much of the theoretical in like our classes, but being here has taught me more of the practical applications per se, like how our knowledge could be used in the industry, more the nitty gritty details, the forms, the bureaucratic details. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think you brought up a really important point as well. Like when you like, academia is just so like obviously it's so focused on learning and having those exams and having those tests, and you just apply, I guess, the basic knowledge, or you apply like the really like specific knowledge cases. But then you realize when you go into these work settings, how much the basics matter, and like even just knowing the basics, realize that you're able to address a lot of the problems which they I don't feel like is like highlighted enough in academia. How about you, Kathryn? Would you say you agree with both Noor and Jeremy, or is this something different for you?
No, I'd say I definitely agree as well. I'd say for me, it's a very fresh and unique experience, partly because this is my second co-op term. So versus my first co-op term was very much like, here's a task, do a task, finish it, here's another task. Where here was all student run, and it was you had to kind of create that project. Where same thing, I guess, with the co-op as well as in academia. It's more you have to just do a task and then you're assigned another one. So you're assigned a lab report, you do the lab report, then you do another one. Where here it's more you're kind of creating your project, and it's something really, really new. And I think it's going to be something so useful outside of being in university when you're actually going to go out and do your job and make these projects in your work, like your work time.
I think I want to jump into the next question with you, Kathryn. So as a first-time participant, right, did the program differ from your expectations? And if so, how?
So I'd say I didn't know much about the program when I was kind of applying and signing. I knew it was going to be student driven. I just didn't know how, I guess, uh, how much student driven it was going to be, and how I had to kind of make my project and with my teammates. So I thought that would kind of differed. I was like, oh wow, this is very, very student driven. As well as I didn't know I was going to learn about, like, I guess, BioExperience and these soft skills, which were really, really useful now that I know, I've kind of learned that I can apply not only, I guess, in my future jobs, but as well as kind of in my future projects in school or outside. Yeah.
I definitely also want to add how like even if this is was my second time being part of this program, I definitely feel like this second time felt like a newer experience than my first time. There's just so much that went on during this BioExperience program that at first I was really nervous, like how are we going to balance all of this, right? But it's incredible how much all of us really did and how much we succeeded when it comes down to like the workshops that we had every week, the presentations and deliverables we have to give, working with a new company, right, with Siemens, and then actually delivering on a GMO boot camp. Like there's so much that went on, and it boggles my mind how like I did not expect all of that to happen. I didn't exactly have, low hopes or anything, but this is very different from what last year was. How about you, Noor? Like you're a team lead in your project. How did it differ from your expectations?
I think I'm kind of in the same boat as Kathryn. It was kind of the amount of freedom that we really got. Kind of like, it's not like you deal with it yourself, but like you have to figure out everything kind of on your own. Especially because like whether it was like past research experiences or just in general, like at school and labs, it's always kind of like, you're in a situation where you go in and the teacher tells you what to do, how to do it, when they want it to be done. Whereas this time it was kind of like, okay, here's the general challenge. Come to me if you like need advice, but you kind of have to figure it out on your own. And I think for me, that was like the biggest thing. Because it was the first time I've ever been put in an environment like this. So I think that was like the biggest like expectation for me.
Actually, to even add on to that, like, sorry to put you on the spot. So, like, at least from my experience, I definitely say like being a team lead is very different from being like a team leader from maybe what like the experiences we have from in group projects. Would you agree? Like, would you say was the team lead position something you expected, or was it different?
The team lead, I feel like it's kind of the same situation, but probably like made 10 times worse, I guess, like because I can't tell it for a different word. Because when you're not a team lead, it's kind of you have to figure out what to do, but it's like you have to figure out what to do for yourself. But when you're a team lead, it's like I have to figure out what to do for me and for like everyone else that's like waiting on me to like tell them, like what's the next thing. So it's just like I guess more responsibility in that sense.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like, especially with the project design from the bare bones of it all, and then coming down to, I definitely would say like, as a team lead on my project, right? Like, we're from the start we were told not to, like, we're not a team leader to dictate who does what, when do they do it. They have to do the specific thing, right? And that was definitely something like I had to get used to. I'm definitely not like a dictator in group projects. I just want to let you guys know about that. But like, especially when people don't take that initiative, you have to sometimes take the reins and go, hey guys, could you guys work on this? And I definitely think that like when we come into this, sorry, I lost my train of thought. I definitely think that like like a lot of the participants obviously have that initiative, but I learned how to, in a sense, sort of like encourage team members to come out and do things that they're like uncomfortable with, and kind of taking on their own initiative, and building that social cohesion such that they're not dependent on me and I'm not dependent on them, that we're working together and holding hands, and less that I'm kind of like dragging them with me or they're dragging me with them.
My situation, I was gonna say my situation was I think a little different than yours because I wasn't like the only team lead. I had two other like team leads with me, so I it being my first time as well, like it wasn't like I was just like thrown immediately into it either. So I don't think I think it was a little easier because there were two other people fully kind of guiding everyone else with me.
I 100% agree. I also had Emma too, who was she was also new to this thing, like being a team lead. So it was definitely like it was great having that other person. I will take a chat question actually. So In the chat, it's asking us, how do you think BioExperience has prepared you for what comes after undergrad? And this is a question that was addressed to all of you guys, all the panel members.
I can answer first. I think, like, quite obviously at first, just like developing a lot of like skills you're gonna need in general for classes, like, you know, being able to write technical reports, being able to communicate. I think also being like knowing how to carry yourself around different people, which is something that personally I really like learned during the summer, like the way I was before versus the way I am now, and how you interact with different people and how you interact with teachers, how you reach out to people. So I think almost every single skill that you learn in like the bio experience is applicable later on to undergrad.
I'll definitely agree with that. I'll just jump in. I think that like learning these skills are going to be super useful when you're going to, you know, get your job after undergrad. But I'll also say too, it kind of taught me and prepared me to like think on my feet. So if you know, in the workforce, you will come across problems or like speed bumps, and you need to say, okay, maybe this won't work, but let me try something else. You got to like keep going and not maybe, I guess, say, oh, I failed, like whatever, like I'll just, I guess, not go for it. But you got to always keep going and see what you can do.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like this program helped give me a taste of what to expect in the industry, like after undergrad, but also it gave me an idea of how to like work in projects, because I feel like if COVID didn't happen, we'd be a lot more experienced in working in projects and with other group members. However, this time I got to work on a project. I got to help organize a workshop that isn't set by a professor, and as such, I get to set my own like research questions. I could figure out what I wanted to include in my reports, so on and so forth. And I feel like that'd be a valuable experience for anyone who learns it.
To really echo what Jeremy just said there, the impact of COVID, I know I felt really like inadequately prepared even going into my undergrad. I couldn't even imagine like going on further because I hadn't been in a lab yet. I really didn't have any of those hands-on technical skills. Since my first year, all the like labs are closed to first years. They prioritize the older students. Then even in high school, I was in lockdown for the last 2 years of high school. So I think having this opportunity to really gain those hands-on experience is something that really stood out to me, because otherwise I'm not sure where I would have had that. And now I'm glad, because I know it will definitely carry me throughout my future endeavors.
Thank you so much, guys. I actually wanted to thank Mike, because that was an excellent segue question for this question I made specifically for Edie. So as a returning member, did your experience in this program benefit you in an academic and or professional setting? If so, how?
I think it definitely did, and I want to echo again the like start of the conversation with what Noor said about unexpected learning, because again last summer I did workshops, and then this summer we were doing workshops again. I was like, oh, I like did them last year, like it'll be a breeze, I guess, doing them this year, but it really wasn't. There's so much that I learned this year that I didn't expect to, especially with like the logistical planning side, and really a lot of those soft skills, even though we were running the workshops. I guess that was something too. It was always something new. Last year I did the biotalent workshops and kind of gained the skills that way, but this year I got to run accompanying activities for them. So I still got to develop my like communication skills. I got to develop like time management skills, leadership skills, but kind of in a different sense. So definitely returning for a second term, I got to experience it through a whole new lens. And just really have the opportunity to apply those skills that will be really important going forward. And really, especially like looking at some of those reports, like from the government of Canada, explaining how employers are really looking for these skills, it really sticks out to me. I'm like, yeah, like that makes sense, that like this is really gonna make me stand out or distinguish me from other people in the job market.
A little bit of a surprise question for you, Edie. So like compared to your first experience, right? Like I guess this experience, you had the opportunity to run a workshop. How does it feel knowing that, you know, you're really impacting these students' lives and giving them those like those really useful experiences to go on in their academic career and professional career?
Yeah, that's something really, I had actually like written it down as a point that I wanted to bring up during the discussion, especially because we collected so much feedback from both our biotalent and our GMO bootcamp, and just reading through it and seeing how it like actually did help people. Like they were real people, real participants, and it impacted their life in some way, really has stuck with me. And I remember at the end of my term last year, I really enjoyed the teaching aspect and the science education aspect. I was kind of considering or playing around with the idea. Originally, before I had done BioExperience, I thought I would go into med school or research. But last year, I kind of started playing around with the idea that maybe I kind of want to go the science education communication route, and then doing it again this year and kind of having that reinforced and seeing the direct impact and being able to like share my passion, talk about science the whole day. Like I work at the mall too. I have a second job, but I can't spend my whole shift talking about, I don't know, like bacterial painting with my coworkers there with the customers. So it's just really nice, I think, to you know, be able to connect with like-minded individuals. It's a work experience, but it's also really a social experience where you get to network and make those connections, which is really nice.
I think it's so wonderful that you found joy in such an important thing to do. You know, like you're doing something that for you is super, super fun, but you're helping so many people out there. And that I think is wonderful. I'll actually, Kira, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering if participants or panelists people could give insight in terms of research preparedness and kind of the technical skills.
I guess I could jump in there. I definitely, like, I had never written like a full-on like length lab report or anything. And it was something I really wanted to tackle this year because, again, I think it would kind of give me like a little bit of a stepping stone as I continue throughout my undergraduate career and like later on, like doing like an honors thesis or something, just having some more experience, like actually writing something more substantial. And so we did a thematic analysis for my group, and we took all of that qualitative feedback and then kind of highlighting anytime something like organizational that had to do with organization was said, or something that had to do with like our planning and time management, and then kind of being able to translate that into numbers and really take like statistics out of that we can use and then tailor our program in the future. That was such a cool experience because it's something I had never even considered was possible in my head. I thought, oh, it's words, like it's going to be a long answer. It always kind of stay as quotes. So just seeing the different ways you can interpret different types of data, I thought that was really cool, and it kind of opened my mind up to, you know, in science, I think a lot of the time we're very stuck to our numbers and our maths, but qualitative data is just as valuable too.
Yeah, I had that same experience even when we were doing our final deliverable with like the OG interview. We kind of all systematically sorry, not really echoing my words, right? But essentially we created like a social science type of experimentation type of design, and it was cool to actually like systematically and like almost create a system where you can use responses, words, and actually create data from it. So I'm completely see your point there, Edie. Tasvik, sorry, I'm stealing away your spotlight.
Absolutely no problem. I actually really like the question. So Kathryn, Jeremy, and Noor, you guys are free to go ahead and give your answers as well.
Yeah, for sure.
No, you go first, Kathryn.
You sure?
Yeah, go.
I would say, I guess for ours, we had to write an LCA, which is very, very specific kind of, I guess, research paper where no one really knew about it. Like no one knew how to write it in our group. No one really knew about it in Siemens as well. So I thought it was a kind of an amazing kind of research as well as learning experience for us to learn about, you know, what is an LCA, what parts are in the LCA, and now that we kind of know how to write one and like what components are of it, I think it's super, super useful, especially if in the future, you know, we go to these type of companies where we need to write one, we have that skill kind of in our back pocket that we can pull out and say, you know, we know how to, we've written one before.
I was gonna say, like, aside from all the technical stuff, like, you know, physically going into the lab and like doing a PCR, going through papers, one thing that really like stuck out to me is learning to be adaptable, because like research isn't a linear thing, and that's something I learned this summer. You know, it keeps going back and forth, and you know, you think you're going the right way, and then the next day you figure out actually no, this is completely wrong. And so I think being flexible and being adaptable is one really important thing that I learned this summer that, you know, anyone in research is going to have to use and apply when they're doing their own projects.
Yeah, I completely agree with Noor. There's during the whole researching information for the workshop, I had to constantly go back and forth between sources to try and find a a source that we could consider to be reliable. For example, I found a peer-reviewed report that perfectly suited and answered all my questions. The problem was the data was about 10 years old, so it couldn't be considered too reliable per se. But seeing as we had nothing else to go off on, I used the data and made a note to make sure the team would double check the data, like see if this still applies, and look up on other sources to see if it, how to say, corroborated. I'm forgetting words here, but yes, if the other data still echoes what I found. So yeah, I found that this program taught me how to filter all the peer-reviewed articles that would probably be useful come this semester, actually.
I want to add a little bit to that because Jeremy was part of our team. Like I think that was like a good point he mentioned was like the communication between team members, especially in research, right? Like you can't do research by yourself, whether it's in the lab or even on the computer and looking at different resources. So yeah, like communicating to your team members what you think of, like how you analyze a resource is super, super important. And another thing based off what Noor said, right? Like research isn't linear, and I thought that was a super, super like fantastic point. Especially because like when you go to school, it just feels so systematic, feels so stepwise. It goes from step 1 to step 2, and if there's a mistake, you kind of like ignore it. Like there's no like problem solving that's involved in it. And I know like especially with the GMO bootcamp, like you guys highlighted that the whole idea that if there is a mistake, that is okay, but it's like it's your job to try and figure out what happened, and if you can learn from that mistake, then obviously that the mistake was more than welcome, right? Edie, go ahead.
I guess I just wanted to say, like, jumping off that with the GMO bootcamp, we actually had like a great, I guess, story that kind of goes with that, where it was our PCRs, right? None of our PCRs worked, yeah. And so first of all, for us, this was kind of like, oh, it didn't work out, and everything was kind of like step by step, like the next protocol led into the next one. But then as a team, we kind of problem solved and turned that into an activity on its own, where then we created an opportunity for all our participants to kind of do like a think pair share, like what could have gone wrong. And then we came back and had a group discussion where we kind of figured out as a team and had that opportunity to troubleshoot. And I think it was really great because it was an opportunity like for the, I guess, administrative team to troubleshoot, but also creating that learning opportunity for others.
Kara, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think that's exactly what's so great about the BioExperience experience is because I remember even coming in from the very beginning, Mads kept on saying, this program is designed so you cannot fail. And even though he kept on saying that, it wasn't really registering into my head until there are a lot of mishaps which happened in my team, and instead of getting upset at us, it was like, okay, this is a learning opportunity, and how do we grow from here? And it's really empowering, and it's just echoing what you're saying, Edie, for sure. Like sometimes things just don't work out, and it's that troubleshooting or like iterations that you need to figure out on the spot.
And it's so nice not having that stress of hanging over you, telling you that you have to get it right on that first attempt, especially if it comes down to project design, right? Like it's just so hard to think, like have that like what is it called, like that foresight on how your project is gonna go. And the minute that like some mistake happens, right, like it punches us in the face, right? Like I said, just slap in the face. So yeah, like knowing that you can't fail and knowing that like this is just a learning opportunity. Wow. Like it takes away the stress and actually lets me improve and become a better like project designer. Mads?
Yeah. And this is, it's kind of mean, but right. This is a very shared experience, is that students go through this sort of like enthusiasm when they get started. They start figuring out what they want to do, what they want to accomplish, and then when we get closer to the 8-10 week mark, right? Then it's kind of like it's starting to crack a little bit. It's not as easy as people thought it was, and then it's sort of like you have to really like go through a period of despair and find new opportunities and understand that you can actually make a lot of meaningful work, even though that your initial plans, they don't work. Like maybe they were too ambitious, maybe they're not technically possible, but there are so many ways that you can contribute anyway, right? And if you know from the start what it is that exactly what it is that you accomplish, it's not research anymore, right? Then it's just predictable, and you know, that's not the point. The point is to have that ability to and support each other within the team, and saying, you know, instead of saying no, we don't give up, we continue, and there are other ways we can contribute. We can't cure cancer today, but we can chip away at it in meaningful ways, right? But it does. I'm sorry to say, but you have to go through this period that really sucks, where you're starting to create like you're getting frustrated and you build resentment within the team, and you know, maybe you start yelling at each other. Hopefully not too much, but basically that is part of the process and learning how to deal with those challenges.
Edie, would you like to jump in?
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to kind of say something else that stood out to me, and like what makes dealing with that process or those challenges easier is the way it is really a student-led program, and you're working with your peers in that kind of collaborative, safe space. And something that really stood out to me, Kiara's group did an EDI workshop earlier this week. Yeah, oh wow, this week is when it feels like a long week, but anyways, and something that really stood out to me was this activity where they put us in breakout rooms and we had to come up with 4 similarities and 4 differences. And even though, you know, we're all coming from maybe different schools and like different backgrounds, and we all bring our own like unique perspectives, which is amazing, there's still a lot that kind of all joins us as students with similar interests. And it really creates, it just feels a lot safer. Like if you do make a mistake, you're working with your peer and with almost like a friend. Like I do consider my teammates my friends, and it's just, it makes it easier. Like you kind of have that cushion. If something goes wrong, you know, you have people there supporting you, and that will kind of have your back there. So
I think that's such a nice message. Thank you for that, Edie. Mike, you can go ahead and ask your question. Oh, we can't hear you, sorry.
I can hear him actually.
I can hear him, yeah.
Oh, it might be one of those half of the
No,
bit.
I left and came back.
Mike, you need to log out. Okay, he is.
I guess until he's back, yeah. Oh, never mind, he's back already. Go ahead.
I'm back. Can people hear me? Excellent. I just wanted to I wanted to follow on a bit what Mads was talking about. So I spent 10 years working in biomedical labs in academia and government, and now do science facilitation and all this other kind of more on the sidelines stuff. But I can tell you from experience that you have to learn to enjoy that space of not knowing what you're doing and not knowing what the best way forward is, and trying stuff. And you know, because the fact of the matter is, especially with things related to science and science education and all these different things that you've been working on, the truth is that there isn't one way forward. And if you can't get some fun out of trying to figure these things out and being in that space of not knowing what's going to happen next, then you're not going to enjoy a career in science. That's what it's all about, right? It's about testing these new ideas and seeing what happens, and then adjusting to those things. So I think just having heard, you know, all 4 teams talk today about what you've been working on and your experience this summer, it really seems like that's a lesson that you've all kind of learned, or at least been faced with throughout the summer. So I'm super glad that you all did this program, because I mean that's why I love science. It's no one knows the answer, and when you find out one little thing or you move a little bit forward, like you are the one person or the one group of people that have accomplished that in the world, right? So you know, take some pride in that. Take lots of pride in that. And I hope that you continue down these journeys and use these skills as as you move along, as it sounds like you're going to. So yeah, just embrace the chaos and try to enjoy it along the way as well.
Thank you so much for that message, Mike. It feels especially nice to hear that from someone who has as much experience as you. Like anxiety is public enemy number one. You can't help but think that you haven't gotten as much done as you wanted to. But it's always nice, like having you and even Mads during the whole term just telling us that it's okay. Hang on to that motivation and enthusiasm to learn, and it feels so nice. But for a little bit of a change in topic, we've talked so well about the BioExperience program, but I want to ask, so Jeremy, what did you find most challenging about the program?
Definitely time management and self-discipline, because most of the time, all the research I've conducted thus far has been, I'll say, restricted to university labs, so lab reports, occasional projects here and there. So for the first time, I get to pick my own, research questions. I get to research my own topics. However, I found that it could get a bit hard sometimes to, go onto the URL website library to just type in the research question to filter out all my searches or read through the articles. So yeah, that part I found most challenging about the program. But to combat that, I would say work with my teammates more. That would keep me in check and help me finish my work a bit faster, I would feel.
I definitely agree, especially because you're in charge of yourself. It's scary, all this responsibility. We have to get used to it, but it's still a lot.
Yeah.
How about you, Kathryn? Do you have anything to add? Do you agree with Jeremy?
Yeah, for sure. I would definitely agree with the time management, as well as I'd say for me, kind of the most challenging was kind of like making your project, like all the back end stuff that has to go into there, like deciding your scope, like deciding like what you want to go for. I guess for my project specifically, it was kind of like we had to really decide which part we wanted to focus on like the life cycle of our medical product. So we could go one way with disposal, we could go another way with materials, we could go another way with distribution. So I think those like back end parts to making that project of, okay, what should we focus on? And I think it was also because it was our first time ever doing it, or at least for me, it was my first time ever doing that. So I didn't really know exactly how to go about it. It was a great learning experience. And I feel now that it'll help me in the future when I'm going to do a project like that again. I also want to say, embrace the chaos. That's awesome. I feel like I need to embroider that onto my lab coat. I think that's the best thing.
Tattooed all over my arm. I would not mind that. Noor, how about you? Do you have anything to add to that? What are some challenges that you faced during the program?
I think one of my biggest challenges, which we just talked about, was actually getting used to having to embrace the chaos. So although we had all this freedom and everything, which is great because it's a lot of independence, at the same time it was really challenging to have to get used to the fact that you're kind of your own boss in this sense. Especially for us, like Mads mentioned, at like the 8-week period in like July, I think almost every day after we had a meeting with one of our clients, we'd have to completely like 180 and completely change everything we had. And, having to get used to, almost every day completely changing course until eventually we found the right path after, I think, maybe weeks, if not like the whole month of just kind of going back and forth was quite challenging. And then on top of that, which kind of, bleeds into this, is the fact that it wasn't something I was dealing with on my own. I was also dealing with this with like 10 other people on my team, which, having 10 other people on the team is great because it lightens the load and teamwork is great and all that. But at the same time, when you have 10 other people, when you're dealing with all of this, it's just much more difficult because you have to deal with all their feelings as well. And like, it's kind of just like you're facing the chaos, but you're facing the chaos while also having to like manage and handle like all these other opinions and all these other people that are around you at the same time. And so that was also challenging to get used to as well.
Thank you so much. Yeah, like there really are, like I keep going back to the whole idea of you're on your own and you're responsible for your own things. So I definitely call that one of my biggest challenges, just really holding on and organizing all the tasks you need to do. Because, a project that you've never attempted before, how do you even go about it? Right? Like, what do you even do? It was so hard for, like, especially Emma and I to grasp that and organize the tasks we need to do. Crazy. I do have a sort of a off the outline question, and I'll ask this to Edie. So yeah, as we said, the program was good. It was fun, right? But what could we do to make it even better?
I guess as you were all talking about like what you found challenging in the program, and I was kind of thinking about it, what I definitely found challenging and something I guess I'd like to see in the future more of, I think just the format of the program sometimes is really hard for me, that it was mainly virtual. I do want to say, like, I am really, really grateful that I did have the opportunity to work remotely, because I'm not in Brantford at all. I'm back home for the summer. So it's nice to still be able to connect with it. But I know that like 1 week that I was in Ottawa in the lab running the camp, like just like being in person, being like moving around, actually like working with my teammates face to face was just such a nice experience and change of pace. And it's really like I felt so much more engaged with the project being there. So I think it would be really nice in the future to just have more of that, like more opportunities to actually do things in person and see your team in person. Again, I don't know, it just is so much like the long meetings sometimes, like there's screen fatigue, and it just was a different kind of experience, and it was really great to work there. So
Yeah, sorry to put you on the spot with that kind of question. It's definitely hard. You'll notice that I'm not going to answer it because I can't think off the top of my head regarding that question. It's so hard when you're like asked to really reflect on what could have been done better. But that's what the end of year surveys are for, right? The end of summer surveys. And for the sake of time, I'll actually move on to the next question. So passing the mic to you again, Edie, sorry, but would you recommend this program to a peer? And if so, what would you say?
I definitely would. And during the summer, we actually did kind of pitch it. So I'm in the URS program, or like I'm a URS scholar, and we had a few of this year's URS scholars reach out, and they were interested in our program. So we talked with them a little bit. And when I saw this was one of the panel questions, it made me think of that experience, because we did really get to share what was so great about it and like why we would recommend it. And I think the biggest thing that I said to these incoming students, since I was in like the same place last year as the first year, kind of going back to that social element. And I know coming into it, or like since I started before I came to university last year, just being able to like have that little, I don't know, toe in, or that experience is really great, and to be able to network and like know so many people, and like older year students as well who were great mentors during my first year. That I think that definitely last summer, that was my biggest takeaway from the program, was just the social aspect and making those connections. And it's something so different from other labs, where like I've heard my other friend who's a URS scholar in her lab, she goes in every day, she gets her tasks from her professor, she sits and kind of does them alone, and it's all like other PhD students who don't really talk to her. And so definitely you have to have like your own interest, you have to be motivated and take the initiative to really do the project you want, but I think you can get a lot out of it.
I definitely agree with you on that. I feel like the help, like, the BioExperience program is sometimes so hard to pitch to people. Like, it really is one of those things that you have to be in it to understand it sometimes, or be part of the celebration, like, and hear the whole ins and outs and all these discussions and panel questions and presentations, which is obviously something we can't really do all the time whenever we want to pitch it to someone new. But that's why I think, like, like when we have co-op programs that sort of like, not force, but encourage these students to join this program, even though they don't know what it is. I think they really realize how lucky they got to, experience something like even though it's so experimental right now, in a sense, like so new, they still got to experience it. How about you, Kathryn? Would you say you agree with Edie?
Yeah, for sure. I think like I would definitely recommend this to like a colleague or like a friend or someone else. I think this type of program is very like hands-on, and I feel like you get one of the best experiences through learning if you're doing it. Like you're basically like one-on-one, it's you doing it. But I would say I would have to like get ready. Like you have to be motivated, you have to be passionate, because it's going to be you're the one who's going to be working on it and making your problem, making your research question. So I would I guess kind of caution when I'm talking to somebody, like if you don't have that drive, or if you feel like you just want to do tasks and just you're done with it, I don't know if it would be the best for you.
it's definitely one of those things. You need that motivation to learn. I definitely do think motivation is something you can gain, especially when it's a project you're interested in. And if you have people that around you that share that enthusiasm, it's so contagious. It grows on you. So for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and go on to the last question. This question I thought was super important because, we talked so much during this entire Jamboree, like so much has been said. How much is everyone going to remember? So as a final take-home message for the audience members, please describe one thing that stood out to you or was particularly important to you regarding the program. And for this, I'll pass the mic to Noor first.
So my thing kind of relates to something we've kind of touched on a bit before. So my biggest takeaway, and like the most important thing to me, was the importance of perseverance during this whole time. I know in theory, people always mention it like, no matter what, you keep going, you keep trying, you fail, you try again, you fail, you try again, you fail, you try again. But only until you're actually like physically doing it and you're actually physically hitting a brick wall almost like every week do you realize the importance of how important it is. Because if you don't persevere, then everything kind of just falls apart. And then people would say maybe adaptability is also as important, but the thing is to me, I think that without perseverance, then you won't be able to do all the other stuff like be adaptable or try and find different solutions. So for me, that was really like one of the most important things that really, really stuck with me. Because honestly, there's a lot of times where, if not just me, but people in my team also like almost wanted to give up. And if it were not for that perseverance, like we wouldn't, have kept going, and it would have been really sad because we actually did end up doing a lot, and I'm really happy with like what we were able to do.
I'll follow my screen. Edie, you're up next.
My answer kind of goes in a different direction, I guess. So something I've always struggled with other like science-based programs is that I'm someone who really loves science, but I also really love art, and I have different artistic kind of interests, and those have always had to be really, really separate. But what I really love about this program is that it brings both of those together, which is a really rare opportunity for me. So even though we were doing like a GMO boot camp and these like biotalent activities, because I had that leeway and initiative where I could kind of take my own direction and my own approach, I was able to bring in some opportunities where I got to do like the pitch videos. I did some Instagram advertisements, like website design, even just like the logo design, or even the bacterial painting day that we did. I think it was just really nice to be able to see how those mesh together. And then even with the whole like entrepreneurial side and seeing how sciences and arts and entrepreneurship, they can all really go hand in hand. It kind of really, it's a nice reminder that I don't have to have one or the other in a future career, but I can find a way to bring both my interests together.
Kathryn?
I'd say the biggest takeaway for me is it's okay for you to fail. I'd say in university, you don't really have an area to like, if you fail, there's going to be very big consequences, especially, if you're in like a very competitive program or you're trying to get to med school, or you're trying to do these things, you don't really have that area to fail in. But here, I feel like it's such a nice environment, and it's like that's the reality of life. Like you are going to fail in some things, but it's not about like, okay, you fail, who cares? It's what you do with it, and that experience of, okay, it didn't work out, now what can I do with it? What can I go forward with? Can I change it? And that kind of happened here, with our project. We wanted to go in an area, we unfortunately couldn't. We had to kind of change our scope, and it was not about, like, when I think about it, it's not that we couldn't get there. It's not that we kind of failed there. It's that we turned it on its head. We kind of learned what we learned from that, and then we put it into like a different, like we made something out of it. And I think that's so important, because that's what you're going to do in life. Like you are going to fail. It's not about what you failed at. It's what you're going to take from it and what you're going to do in the future.
Almost made me shed a tear. Thank you, Jeremy.
Yes, the best for last. Final take-home message. I'd say keep an open mind. This program reminded me that there's always something new to learn. It's not like I assumed that I knew everything to do with science, but I was somewhat confident about my knowledge in the subject matters, but taking part in the program brought to mind different scenarios, situations, or subjects that I never knew I didn't know, if that makes sense. It gave me plenty to think about, and I feel like yeah, just keep an open mind and just know there's always something you don't know.
Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciated all your answers, and I think they really did highlight and summarize a lot of the experiences I personally felt. And I hope, I bet everyone else can agree as well. Like, the summer was full of so much, and I'm really glad that we got to make the most of it. And on that note, I'd like to say that the panel discussion is over. And I wanted to thank our panelists, Noor, Edie, and Kathryn, and Jeremy, for all their fantastic answers. And then I'd also like to pass the mic over to Mads. Oh, yeah. And then I'd like to pass the mic over to Mads to give our closing statements.